Hello everyone and welcome to episode 87 of Generation GC, Sex on the Radio from Cardiology, Good Charlotte's fifth album released in 2010. My guest today is Amber Carter. My name is Molly Hudelson once again, and as always, I am your host as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this podcast. Last time we talked about Misery from Good Morning Revival, and on our next episode we'll have a bonus episode talking about something that's not a Good Charlotte studio album track. Amber Carter is 29 years old and she lives in the UK. She first discovered GC when Lifestyles came out. Kerrang TV was therefore a pretty big way for her to discover a whole host of heavier bands and pop punk bands that really went on to shape her music taste and her love for music. The first time Amber saw GC was on the Karang tour in 2011 when the band were touring off Cardiology. And yeah, we'll talk a whole lot about that. She's seen them many times since, including festivals, meet and greets, acoustic sets. Cardiology is actually Amber's least favorite Good Charlotte album, and I had a lot of fun hearing all about why. I also wanted to say that I love having guests from all around the world and from all different backgrounds on Generation GC. If English isn't your first language, that's okay. As long as you're comfortable holding a conversation in English, you're good to go. And different backgrounds doesn't just mean location or ethnicity. It means ensuring a varied gender and sexuality representation and representing fans of different ages and fans with their own unique life experiences of any sort. I also want to continue mentioning blacklivesmatters.card.co, antisemitism.card.co, and anti-asianviolenceresources.card.co. And today I am going to start including a link for 27 meaningful ways to help Ukraine right now. There are a whole lot of different ways that you can get involved and make a difference. So I'm just going to put a link to that whole list from globalcitizen.org, and hopefully if there's a way that resonates with you. Finally, Generation GC stickers are here. If you do want a sticker, there's two things you can do. Number one, support the show on Anchor. Go to anchor.fm/generationgcpod and click support. All that money goes right back into making the show the best that it can be, helping me print and ship the stickers, helping me buy new cables, new notebooks and pens, because I do a lot of stuff on paper, helps me buy laptop risers and headphones and just all the stuff I need to keep it going. Number two, you can make a donation to the Alzheimer's Society. Amber mentioned this as a cause that's close to her heart, and it's very close to my heart too, so I was really, really happy that she suggested the Alzheimer's Society. You're going to go to alzheimers.org.uk and click Get Involved. And then you're going to take a screenshot of either your support of the show on Anchor or your charitable donation and send that to me along with your mailing address, and I will send you stickers. You can also keep up with Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, POD, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I'll occasionally post other ways that y'all can just get involved and spread the word about the show and get some stickers that way too. Well, thank you for tuning in, and now on to episode 87.
All right, so we are talking today about Sex on the Radio. This is track 7 on Cardiology, Good Charlotte's fifth album, released in 2010. Track 6 is Last Night, and track 8 is Alive. The song was written by Benji and Joel Madden, and it has been played live more times than I thought, but again, setlist.fm is not always totally accurate. It's banking on how many people decide to write up a set list from a show, so it's not a super accurate source, but it looks like it was ranked number 22 on setlist.fm of their most played songs. And it kind of looks like whenever they did tour off of Cardiology from, 2000, a little in 2010, but I think mostly 2011 and a little bit in 2012 in Australia. I mean, they played this song all the time. Setlist.fm has 53 plays recorded. It hasn't been played in the US since 2011. It's gotten a lot of love in Australia and Europe, which I don't know, I'm not surprised they haven't played it in a decade because it's kind of like a deep cut, but
yeah, me either.
There's so much from Cardiology that if you didn't hear it that first time, you never get to hear it live.
Yeah, so they played it on the first tour that I saw them on, because that was the Kerrang tour, the Cardiology tour, and I think they played it third from last, surprisingly.
Interesting.
I don't really think it's a third from last song either.
Well, it was released as a single in, I think it was like January 2011, before they toured the UK. So yeah. I would guess maybe they played it towards the end because they were really trying to push this song.
It makes sense.
Yeah, so that would be my only thought there. And there is a music video for this song, which I learned like 3 days ago.
Yeah, I didn't know that myself either until I was going through, and it was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
well, they're about, but yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about the video later, but I will say for now that like the Sex on the Radio music video is not on the main Good Charlotte YouTube channel. It's on the GC home videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, I think it was maybe one of those more fun things for fans rather than a real push to make it a big single. Exactly. But in terms of charts, I don't see any record of this song charting at all in the US or the UK. But it did chart at number 26 in Australia, and it was also certified platinum in Australia. Wow. Yeah. But like, I feel like the question I always have with like Cardiology and Australia, because like it's well known by now that Cardiology did way better in Australia than everywhere else. But like, how much of it is Australia was just more open to this song or this album, and how much of that is like they just promoted it more and put a lot more into marketing and radio placement and press in Australia? I don't know. I think it was maybe a promotion thing there. The fact that it is well documented that it was pushed more over there. So yeah,
that's kind of my thought too. Like radio. I mean, I don't work in radio. I work in music video promotion. But it's a somewhat similar sort of world in that, like, you know, music videos don't just appear on MTV. They don't just appear, you know, when you go to the gym, maybe you see some music videos playing on TVs at the gym. Music videos don't just appear there, right? They have to be submitted.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a good team submitting your music video, it's not going to get those placements. And I think radio's somewhat the same. Like, if you don't have a good team pushing, it's just not going to get that airplay.
Yeah, you've got to fight for it, haven't you? So there's a lot of competition. There's so much music coming out, and especially now with how easy it is to access anything.
Well, this you
do need to push.
Yeah, and like this album. So this album came out. It was like November 2010, and this song. I mean, they were touring the U.S. summer 2011, like summer 2011, but that's when Spotify came to the US, was summer 2011. And I feel like that so changed the game in a lot of ways for like how people checked out music and explored new music.
Definitely, especially because it's not really single based either, because you've got everything at your fingertips. You can check out anything, so it's so easy to have singles get lost amongst everything else.
Exactly. But yeah, I don't know. In 2020, I was like, man, I want like a Cardiology. I don't even know a whole tour. And 2020, obviously with COVID, but like, give me like one live stream where they play all of Cardiology back to front to back.
I wonder how many people would say that. See, for that one, I think I could maybe manage them doing a extended Cardiology set, like throw some more songs into a current one. But I think that's an album, out of all the albums they've done, I'd much rather hear another one done in full.
Sure. Well, I know you have a lot of thoughts on Cardiology versus some of the other albums.
Yep.
And I do too. But I want to help people get to know you, Amber. So The first question I like to ask everyone is, when did you first hear Good Charlotte, and what were your first thoughts on them?
So I first heard them in 2002 when Lifestyles was released. So it really jumped out because it was so catchy and fun. At the time, I was mainly listening to pop music still, having grown up listening to 90s girl and boy bands.
Were you a Spice Girls fan?
I was, yeah. Steps was my biggest group at the time. So,
Okay.
but you can't not love the Spice Girls. But because I listened to the charts, there was also things like Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit sneaking through at the early noughties. And so I any kind of music jumped out to me at the time, but I didn't really take much notice beyond the singles at that time. Especially because when I was that age, I was still more interested in football or soccer as it is over in the US than I was music. It wasn't until I was about 14 or 15 when I really started to get into music and explore it more. And I found that I didn't really care for what was in the charts as much anymore. A friend had introduced me to Kerrang TV, and I found a whole host of heavier bands and pop punk bands, and that's pretty much shaped my music taste since. And Good Charlotte featured a lot on that, so I heard things like Lifestyles over again, Girls and Boys, and it was just then I was like, oh, I remember that from a few years ago, and the love just kind of spiraled from there.
I love it. Well, I do want to ask more about Kerrang TV because it sounds so cool. But the next question I want to ask you, something I also like to ask pretty upfront, is have you ever seen Good Charlotte live?
I have indeed. So I've managed to catch them 4 times because they don't tend to come over to the UK quite as much as I'd like. But I have been lucky enough to meet them twice. I met them when they supported All Time Low on the comeback. They did a meet and greet and acoustic set, which was just incredible. They played Seasons, and they also did Mother from the Madden Brothers album.
Wow.
So that was really special.
Wow.
So that was just incredible. And then I went again on the Youth Authority tour and did the same again. So yeah, I've been pretty lucky. Very
cool. Very cool. Well, I do want to, I want to hear a lot about some of your thoughts on the different GC albums and Kerrang TV, but I'm really curious, Amber. I mean, obviously, music and the GC fandom is pretty big for you, but outside of that, like, what do you like to do to have fun? Like, what are some fun facts about you?
So I've got some really amazing family and some weird and wonderful friends, so I love to spend as much time with them as I can. I've mentioned that I really love football, so I spend a lot of my time watching that.
Do you play?
I used to play, but I don't anymore. So I used to play for the local football team for my town, so I really enjoyed that.
Oh, cool.
But now I just stick to watching it.
Fair.
And I'm also a huge Lego fan, so I spend a lot of my kind of free time just building Lego. So you'll usually find me with a Harry Potter set or a Star Wars set.
Do you? I was going to ask, do you like follow sets, or do you kind of make your own creations usually?
I usually follow sets that have come out, so I'm not quite as creative.
It's a nice. I can imagine it's a nice way to just do something engaging that you don't. I mean, you have to think about, but do something engaging that's just enjoyable.
Yeah, I find it really nice for like winding down. Like if I've had a stressful day or week, I can just chill out, get a set out. And,
My big thing lately has been coloring books.
Oh yeah.
I
do like a coloring book.
My boyfriend got me for the holidays. He got me a coloring book with pugs, which I love pugs. I think they're the greatest dogs ever, and I hope to adopt a pug of my own.
Very nice.
But it's just like pugs in like all different like silly outfits and stuff. And I bought a nice pack of crayons, and I use that coloring book like every day to wind down. It's a lot of fun.
It's so therapeutic. It really is.
It really is. I don't know. I think we need a Good Charlotte coloring book.
Yes, that would be awesome.
That would be sick. I mean, what was it? I think it was Makeshift Love. That video was sort of a coloring book style.
Yeah.
Or like the lyric
really
book.
Cool
for
like
40-ounce stream. 40-ounce stream. Yeah.
Yes. And even like the Chronicles of Life and Death, the video for that would be really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have so many cool things. Like, I don't know. Maybe we need to call up Billy Martin and ask him to make this happen for us.
Yes, he's definitely the man to do that.
Yeah. Well, Amber, I really want to hear about Kerrang TV. Like, what bands did you see on there? Like, does it still exist? Like, was it music videos? Was it like interviews? Like what was going on with Kerrang TV?
Yeah, it still exists. So it's mostly music videos.
Okay.
But I think sometimes you will find the odd thing where it's maybe got little interviews thrown in. But they'll often do. It's generally a lot of the same songs getting played over and over again. It is quite mainstream in a sense. So you do see the likes of Good Charlotte, Sum 41, All Time Low, everyone kind of popping up a lot. But they'll often do somewhere they'll get bands in to do like a countdown of their favourite 20 songs or things like that. So it gives you a bit of an insight into what your favourite band's like. But then they do have sections for like introducing. So they'll put out new bands that you've not heard of, or they'll play your latest tracks that have come out in the rock world and do like a rock chart, so it's not getting mixed in with like your pop chart sort of thing. So it mostly got me into bands like Sum 41, A Day to Remember, Enter Shikari, Paramore, and as I said earlier, reintroduced me to Good Charlotte and Linkin Park, and those were bands who had already crept onto my MP3 player a few years earlier. So yeah.
Is Kerrang TV still around?
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah, so I don't watch it as much nowadays. Especially, I think since the likes of Spotify came out, I found that it's generally been a better way to find new music.
Spotify's discovery is really good. Like,
yeah,
they are really good at recommending artists that you'll like, in my experience.
Yeah, so because it used to be something that I'd watch a lot to try and find new bands, but I'd also read the magazine for that as well. But it's tuning in at the right times of day as well.
Sure.
So yeah, since kind of I'm more active in life, going out and doing things and stuff, you don't have as much time. Whereas Spotify, I've constantly got it at my fingertips.
Right,
it's always in my ears, and I'm always finding new things. So.
Yeah. I get that. I totally relate. Do you read Karang magazine?
I don't anymore. I was subscribed for years, and I've recently sorted through hundreds of copies of them, actually, that I've just never thrown away. So it used to be my highlight every week, getting that, when I finished school. So, yeah.
I subscribed to alternative press for a while. I mean, several years. Like, there was... I think like all through high school, like I would go to Barnes and Noble and I would buy alternative press, and I would buy that like whenever I could. And then I think when I got to college, I was like, I'm an adult. I'm going to, get a subscription. Like, why not, Yeah. And I subscribed for like, I mean, I read it regularly all through high school. And then I subscribed like, I think all through college and a little while after.
Yeah, I was the same. I think I was maybe in my early 20s when I stopped subscribing in the end, because I just found myself getting so caught up with loads of other stuff that I wasn't reading it every week cover to cover.
Yeah.
So I tend to just pick up a magazine when there was a cover artist that I wanted.
Exactly.
Just go out and get certain ones. But I still, to this day, always read stuff on their Facebook page and the website and things, because that's how you still keep up with your latest news and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's still very much a part of my music life.
Same. Yeah. I mean, I follow alternative press on Twitter. I follow other music podcasts, and like, friends. I have a couple. My friend Joel Funk, he was on one of the earliest episodes of Generation GC. He talked about My Bloody Valentine, but like he always knows like what cool new bands are going on. So I'm like, I don't know. I like look at his Twitter. I'm like, what is Joel Funk listening to?
He can do all the research for
you. Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, Amber, the last question I had for you before we dive into Sex on the Radio, we were talking. I mean, we've been talking. I think it was last April that we first chatted. You had said that Good Morning Revival is your favorite album, and Cardiology is your least favorite. I want to know a little bit more about why.
Okay, so Good Morning Revival was the Good Charlotte album that came out when I was really getting into music, and it was the first GC album I bought. So I think that plays a big part in why it's my favourite.
Totally.
It's got that nostalgia factor, but I think there's also so many incredible songs on it. So, as I say, Karang had reintroduced me to the likes of Lifestyles and Girls and Boys. But it was when The River came out that peaked and my interest in them sparked the love for them. It was a little bit different to the pop punk tracks from them that I'd already heard. It was a little darker and a little rockier, and those were the type of songs standing out to me at that time. So I waited for the album to come out. I don't think it was long before the album was coming out. And I went straight to my local music store, bought it, and I just fell in love with it. It had other kind of rockier, darker songs on it, but also had your catchy pop rock songs like For Anthem, which is one of my favourites. So I liked the use of like electronics in it. So it's just something a little bit different, but it still had that kind of underlying core of Good Charlotte. Sure. So because I love that album so much, I went out and bought all their previous albums, and I just went to a wormhole. I fell in love with all of them for so many different reasons, because each album's so different but so appealing. So by this point, Good Charlotte are one of my favourite bands, and I'm desperate for more new music. And I believe it was 3 years between Good Morning Revival and Cardiology coming out.
Like 3.5. I mean, because Good Morning Revival was like March of 2007, and Cardiology was November 2010.
Yeah, and I think because I'd fallen so in love, it felt like such a long time between those albums.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's because that was the first album that I really had a build up to with Good Charlotte. Because with Good Morning Revival, it was like a couple of months. I can still remember the excitement of waiting for that album to drop once it had been announced.
Especially Cardiology, it was like almost a year before that they were like, our next album is called Cardiology. And then they were like, oh, we're going to re-record it.
Yeah, it seemed to like build all the hype, and then it was like, oh, we've still got a while to wait now. So it was quite an interesting release, but it definitely added to that excitement I found. Yeah. And when it first came out, I did really enjoy it. Again, it was different to what they'd done before, and especially very different to Good Morning Revival. Yeah. But you could still tell it was them. I felt like they were trying to get back to the roots a little bit. But I also thought it was a little bit more fun and not as serious as previous albums, even though they said that they called it Cardiology because it was every song was kind of closer to the heart, which gives it that more serious feel, but I don't feel like it was. But that's just my opinion, of course. Yeah. So, yeah, although I enjoyed it, like I say, it's my least favourite album of theirs. So I think I just didn't relate to the songs as much as I did on songs on previous albums. But I still enjoy it because then sometimes if you want to be cheered up and you want to listen to something that's maybe not
it's
so
an
serious,
easy listen. Yeah, it's an easy listen for sure.
And you can instantly feel kind of really cheery. So it's really good in that sense. I think you need that sometimes.
I mean, Cardiology was my most played GC album, I think, for the last 2 years. Yeah. Just because it is like, it's easy to listen to, you know, it's fun. And like, yeah, Good Morning Revival is dancey, but like, it's kind of intense. Like there's a lot of like bitterness and anger on Good Morning Revival. And Cardiology, I will say, has 2 of my favorite Good Charlotte songs. I mean, 3 of my favorite Good Charlotte songs, which are Let the Music Play, which I have tattooed on me. Yeah. It has There She Goes. And then it has, I think, my favorite Good Charlotte song, which is Right Where I Belong. But there is a lot on this album that I feel like it's weird to say the heart isn't there because the album is called Cardiology. Yeah. You know, but like almost like this, you know, scrappy underdog loner feeling that was really significant really in all of the first 4 albums. Yeah. I don't feel like you got a lot of that in Cardiology. You know, on Right Where I Belong, he talks, there's that song's about God, but it's also about just like fitting in and finding community. But other than that, there's not a lot of that kind of sense on this album. And I feel like I don't, you know, was it because this was on a different label? Was it because this was where they were at in their personal lives or how they felt about the music industry? I mean, I don't know. Like,
yeah, because I know there was talk that they kind of want to go back to how it was in the early days. They were making the music for themselves. They didn't want to do it for anybody else. And I completely admire that. But I don't know. I feel maybe it was just a bit of a weird time for them because I just don't think it was quite their best work. But there is some songs like yourself that I love on there. I really love Last Night, which again I think is just a fun song. And then 1979, that one really jumps out as well.
Sure.
I think that's one of the really lovely moments on that album.
Yeah. Well, we had talked about Last Night and 1979 on prior episodes of the show. And today we're talking about Sex on the Radio. And I want to know why you wanted to talk about Sex on the Radio.
So, as you say, it's an album that's not my favourite one. And it's not my favourite Good Charlotte song. But I love it because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes all I want is to listen to something that's fun and catchy and kind of take you away from the stresses of your day. And I think it jumps out as well because they played it on the Karang tour that I went to in 2011. And I can just remember the crowd singing along to the chorus, and it was a really fun moment. So it kind of gave more energy to the chorus because I was quite surprised they played it in some senses.
I get that. I mean, it was a single, but it wasn't like the big single from this album at all.
No.
Yeah. Well, Amber, I want to know, do you have any like misheard lyrics from this song?
Nothing jumps to mind, no. So it's one of those that I think, again, I don't really get sucked too into the lyrics for this one. It's kind of just a listen,
fun
sing
song.
along, and there we go, yeah.
I don't know if this counts as like misheard, but this was, I guess, in the bridge. He says, I literally, I have in my notes, I just said, not misheard, but what is this? Keep it in the sheets, the radio, the beats, between you and me, we'll throw away the key. I don't know. I'm like, what is going on there? Like, I don't know. Is he trying to say that, like, keep it between you and me? Like, we're going to, like, you know, be intimate, but not tell anyone?
Part of me also thinks that maybe it doesn't mean anything at all. They've just tried to pick a lyric that fits with the theme of the song without it really making any sense. That was the kind of vibe I get from it. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. Well, let's talk about, you know, what the song means or what it's about.
Okay, so my first thought was that it was maybe about guitars or maybe music in general, because I know that Joel and Benji say music was a big thing in their household growing up, so I thought maybe it was about when they first heard a particular song or a band on the radio and thought it was the most amazing thing they'd heard.
Yeah.
And it was maybe kind of like an ode to that sort of thing.
I like that interpretation a lot. I had not even thought of that, but I love that. And I totally see that. Like, just the idea of like hearing a song on the radio and being like, wow, I love this song. And now I love music.
Yeah, I think it kind of made me think of that because I know I started playing guitar myself when I kind of got into rock music.
Same.
And like
same.
Sometimes when you first hear like an amazing solo on the radio or something, you think, wow, and like you hear people saying how like you can really make a guitar scream sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because they both play guitar, it made me wonder, like, was
that
making the draw? So is it kind of an ode to that, or I could be completely wrong?
I know. I like that. I love that. I mean, I think I had a more literal interpretation, which is just that it's about, you know, falling in love with, or, you know, a female singer after hearing her on the radio / just being turned on by, you know, a woman's voice on the radio.
Yeah, I can definitely see that view as well. So it kind of crosses over in a way, doesn't it? So
yeah. But like, what I can't tell is like, was this like about like a real girl? Like were they writing with a specific person in mind, or like more just, you know, theoretical, like a fantasy girl?
Yeah, I wonder whether it was, because I know in 1979 they made codes to a few different artists and bands in there, so you wonder whether it was maybe Blondie or something.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, it'd be interesting to know the themes behind it, but they've not really gone too much into it, have they? So.
Yeah, they have not. But we do have in a little bit, we have a few excerpts from interviews. I wanted to know in terms of like production and instrumentation, what a couple things that stick out to me is like the intro. There's this beeping that kind of goes into the riffing guitars. Yeah, I think that's a really neat intro. And then the hand claps in the chorus, I think, are a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a bit of a throwback in a way to Girls and Boys and
good call, yeah.
Familiar. So yeah, I really liked that. I like the reverb of the guitars that it kicks off with, and then it kind of is underlying the rest of the song. It gives it a bit of bounce.
Yeah.
And then arrangement-wise, it's just your typical pop song, really, isn't it? So it's verse, chorus, verse, but it's simple, but it works. But yeah, sometimes less is more.
Definitely. And I think less is more is a great way to kind of describe this song. Like, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, maybe it's about a girl, musician. Maybe it's about just, hearing guitars and hearing music on the radio, but the emotions, I think, are pretty straightforward. You're falling in love with someone / being turned on by someone after hearing this on the radio.
I'd agree.
In terms of like genre, how would you describe this song?
I'd say it's probably more radio pop rock rather than pop punk, because for me pop punk is the first couple of albums, and I don't think this is really in that territory, although it's still got its guitar bass to it. I think it's got a lot of a poppier vibe. I feel like it would appeal to a lot more fans outside the GC fan. This sort of tune, maybe like those deeper cuts. So yeah, I'd just say it's a lot poppier than it is punk.
It's definitely poppy. I mean, and it's like, it's easy to classify any good Charlotte song as pop punk, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like, the scrappiness, the underdog feeling, essentially, like, to me, that's a big part of what I think makes something punk.
Yeah.
And, I don't really get that at all in this song.
No.
So pop rock, I think, is a good way to put it, like radio pop rock. It does have kind of an old school vibe, like Cheap Trick or something.
Yeah, and I know they kind of credit Cheap Trick as being some of their influences and things, so you can see that kind of coming through.
They do. And yeah, I mean, in terms of, what they've said about this album or about this song, Benji did, this track by track of Cardiology for Alternative Press. And he said, this one reminds me of The Cars or Cheap Trick. It's about all the girls out there who make boys want to start bands and go on tour. Yeah. The only other interview I found was with MTV, with Benji, an interview with Benji. They talked about how they have about 40 songs for the album, all of which could appear on the final version, but they already have their favorites picked out. Sex on the Radio, a rock song that tries to capture the essence of a woman's voice on the radio, and Love Ain't Easy, which Benji says reminds him of the title track from the movie That Thing You Do. I want to know if Love Ain't Easy became another song that ended up on the album, or if it just got cut.
Because I'm curious at that, especially because it's obviously name dropped it as one, and then suddenly it's not on the track list. It's like, has it been renamed and we just don't know what it was meant to be, or did they just completely change their mind? So I think that would be an interesting one to get an answer to, because
I would be really
kind of baited us all in.
Yeah. Well, Amber, do you have any memories or stories that you want to share about Sex on the Radio?
It just reminds me of being younger and more carefree. So I was 18 when this came out, so I was still living at home and I didn't really have any real responsibilities. So I would just put this album on and remember it just made me feel happy. So yeah.
Nice. I love that. I remember just enjoying like how catchy this was and singing along to this song in my car all the time. I had I was in college when this came out, and a couple months after this came out, I finally had a car on campus. So I was able to just drive my car around and play this album quite a lot.
Yeah.
I also like to think about other Good Charlotte songs that a track relates to. So any other songs that have like similar themes, either like lyrics or the music, or are there? I have one written down, but I'm wondering if there's any that come to mind for you.
One that came to mind for me was Lost in Stereo by All Time Low.
Oh, okay.
I don't necessarily think it's about the same thing, but it springs to mind because if you look at the lyrics, they both have that like she narrative that makes them similar, and then obviously radio and stereo, you can say it's similar.
Okay,
so
okay.
That was the only thing I could kind of draw the narrative from. But
sure.
That,
so not a good Charlotte.
Yeah.
Not a good Charlotte song, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So in terms of sounding like another good Charlotte song, I can't really put my finger on anything because I feel like this whole album was quite different, and all the songs on the album are quite. You can see why those ones were all grouped together as such.
Totally. I will say another good Charlotte song that comes to mind, not so much in terms of how it sounds, but like the lyrics, is Riot Girl, because that's also a song that I think was kind of written about this like fantasy girl. Like it's not really a real person.
Yeah, it's a good show actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So that comes to mind for me for sure.
And that's a great song.
Yeah, also a great song.
My favorites. It's definitely my top 10.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about this music video, which I don't think either of us like knew existed until recently.
No.
Which I don't know. That whole thing is weird to me because it's like, yeah, like I always followed them, like MySpace and then their website, and I had, they had like an email list and Twitter, and how did I like not know there was a music video for this song?
Yeah, it's surprising how things can still go under the radar, even though you feel like you know every little thing they do. But I think obviously if you go onto YouTube and put Sex on the Radio on, it brings up just the album cover and the song.
Right.
Because for a lot of things, it's not there on that kind of first jumping out page or anything.
Right.
So yeah.
So, as we mentioned before, this music video was on the GC Home Videos channel, not the main Good Charlotte YouTube. I am not sure who it was directed by because it doesn't say. Basically, the band takes to the streets of Los Angeles wearing disguises to ask people what they think of this song. Dean is a delivery man. Benji, Joel, and Billy all have these like ridiculous wigs and like big sunglasses. I just realized I don't think Paul is in this video.
He's got the mask on, I think. I'm pretty
yes,
sure.
Yes, you're right. Oh my God, you're right. You're right.
And he was not creepy around the background. And
yeah, he didn't like talk much. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, they go up to people asking what they think of this song. I will say, I feel like any good Charlotte fan would have recognized them.
100%.
Also, they're holding up a microphone that says GC on it.
Yeah, which kind of gives it away, doesn't it? So, for me, like, I really enjoyed it when I found it, and I thought it really kind of went along with how they said that with this album they wanted to go back to doing what they want
their
to
roots,
write music for them. So to go out and kind of show that they don't care what anyone else is because they're doing it anyway, it was kind of a good video to do that for.
Sure.
But I definitely think some people knew who they were, and then just, or even if they didn't know who they were, they cottoned on that it was the band asking the questions, and they didn't give their honest thoughts.
Well, one of the people, at least one person in the video was like, the band isn't here, are they?
Yeah, I definitely think he was onto them.
Yeah, I think they're onto them. I want to know like what these people thought was going on. Like, did they know they were being filmed for a music video? Like, what did they think was happening?
Yeah, I wonder if they just thought, oh, well, I don't know whether some people are just used to being approached on the street. I don't know. And just like, yeah, rolling with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely an intriguing one to see how much of it was kind of genuine or whether a lot of it was staged and they've just done it for fun.
There was one guy, I think my favorite was, there was this one guy who said, personally, I think it sucks ass. And then he goes on to say, oh, I think other people might like it, but, he thought it sucked ass.
Yeah, I think he was probably the most honest guy on it, to be fair.
Yeah. I have to point out that there was a Rock Sound article. It was Good Charlotte music video history. And what they said about this video was, taking your new music to the streets and letting the fans decide what they think of it to your face is a brave and bold move. Good Charlotte aren't scared of anything, though.
No, and I think that just really goes with the ethos of what Good Charlotte are. And I mean, I think they've always been a bit of a Marmite band. Mm-hmm. So they're loved and hated. But they just...
Wait, did you say they're a Marmite band?
Yeah.
I love that.
And for me, obviously, I'm definitely on the love side. But yeah, I don't seem to come across many people like, oh yeah, I like a few. I've found that it's very much you either love or hate them.
Yeah.
But what I love so much about them is that they've never cared about that. It's always just been about kind of doing what's right for them. And yeah, so I give them a lot of credit for that.
Totally. Well, let's talk about some reviews, because I mean, this album as a whole did not get very good reviews.
No.
In terms of this song, I mean, it was somewhat mixed. BBC, their review, I just said it was thoroughly mediocre. They said, you do not come to a Good Charlotte album expecting sonic revelation. And sonic revelation is what you do not get in the main. What you do get is a bunch of energetic, melodic, fun songs on the themes of love, girls, and, well, more fun. There's one about listening to pop music and getting a bit too excited, sex on the radio.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reviews were kind of on the same lines, that this album was fun, but that's probably about all it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I have to agree generally, to be fair.
Yeah. The North Wind was not too big on the album, and they said that Sex on the Radio was firmly in Good Morning Revival territory.
See, for me, I would completely disagree with that.
Same.
And it really baffles me, because Good Morning Revival, although it took that rocky essence that had last come out on the Chronicles and added some electronic poppy side to it, like we said earlier, it definitely had that kind of darker, bitter themes to it.
Yeah.
Whereas Cardiology was polar opposite to that, and for me, none of the songs would fit on Good Morning Revival. So,
well, Good Morning Revival was a very bitter, jaded, sarcastic album. I mean, it was very like, the bitterness, I think, is really big for me on Good Morning Revival.
Yeah.
And this album is so optimistic.
Yeah. So I found it really strange to say that they firmly belong in that territory, because I couldn't disagree more. I mean,
this song is so optimistic.
Entitled to an opinion, but I was like, have you even listened to the albums? Because no, I don't agree with that.
Right. Well, on to the next one. Consequence of Sound gave the album a D. They said there are a handful of songs on Cardiology that simply fall flat. Sex on the Radio should have been passed over and not included. It's plausible that there is a B-side somewhere in the GC collection that could have been better album filler than this track. It has a really cheesy chorus, and it just seems that the band did not put a whole lot of effort into this song.
As much as, I think that this song is one of the better ones on the album, personally. But I am intrigued the fact that they recorded so many songs for it. I'm intrigued to see why they didn't make the cut, because although I like the song, I wonder whether, was that really one of their best ones that made the cut? So this album definitely leaves me with a lot of questions that I'm kind of curious to see what got disregarded.
I am too. I really am too. Sputnik Music gave this album a 2, which is poor. They said the band wanted to depart from the danceable sound present throughout Good Morning Revival and return to their pop punk roots. The transition was about as smooth as anything else the band has done, which is to say, significantly flawed. But Cardiology does succeed in its goal to an extent. There is a noticeable influx of speedy pop punk tempos on songs like Counting the Days and Sex on the Radio, both of which provide a lively edge that was rarely seen on Good Morning Revival.
I think too many people often put an emphasis on transitions between albums.
Yeah.
Because I get sometimes you fall in love with a band because you like what they do and you almost want that every album. But then sometimes you think, no, that gets boring, I want to change. But then when you change, people get angry as well. And I think sometimes you just need to go, right, this album was this period in time. The next one, yeah, it's completely different. It doesn't have to have that transition. You can like it or not and just go with that. So yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on that. But for me, I think as much as it was quite a departure from Good Morning Revival, like I say, you still know it's Good Charlotte. So to me, the transition is fine.
Yeah, I agree. It was 3.5 years. Joel got married and had a kid in that time.
Exactly. It's a completely different mindset, whereas you can say, like, Good Morning Revival was definitely kind of a breakup album. It's got that bitterness. So then, yeah, if you've then gone on to get married and have a family, you would expect a more positive state of mind, a different outlook on life. And I think sometimes people forget that the people behind these songs are humans who go through different things in life. And 1 year you could be having the worst year of your life, and the next it could be the best one. So you have to have a different mindset.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to read one more review, which this is from the USC, University of Southern California, Daily Trojan, and they seemed to like it. They said, keeping the party atmosphere alive is Sex on the Radio, another catchy offering sure to find much success on the radio, with high-quality vocals provided by Madden and accentuated throughout by precise hand claps.
Makes you wonder whether they'd heard some of the songs live before that review came out then, because I do think that the songs off Cardiology that I heard them play did fit really well in the set, and it was fun. And that can sometimes totally change your opinion. Oh,
totally.
An album.
Totally. Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's interesting to know whether they have heard some of that live before.
Yeah. I'm definitely, and I'm always curious, like, the person, this is a college newspaper, right? So maybe they're getting paid. I got paid for my college paper, but not that much. And I know that, like, my college paper, like, I wrote about bands that I liked. So I'm kind of wondering if that, if this person was in there. Right, if they were also a GC fan is what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, I want to read some YouTube comments from the music video. There's a bunch, but I want to just kind of skip around here because a lot of them say the same things. Chemo 123321 said, or maybe it was C emo. GC have always been one of my favorite bands, but the songs on their last album did not impress me, so I expected the same with this song. Happily, my expectations were totally wrong. And although I see why people think it is generic, I can't help but love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. So this person clearly doesn't like the Good Morning Revival era as much. And I think that's what makes these such a good band as well, because normally you can say a band and nearly every fan will always say the same album as being like the standout first, whereas I feel with Good Charlotte, they've got such a good fan base with such openness that everyone can say that a different album is their favourite and have really good reasons why.
I agree. Andrew Jenkins said, I like the video, I love the costumes, and the song is freaking awesome. Rosa Wadabausch said, I love this video. It's so funny, especially the man at the end. You're always funny and make your fans laugh. That's why I love you and your music so much.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, like when they did the Just Wanna Live video. So I know dressing up again.
Yeah.
A bit of fun. So I like that they've still kept that fun side to them.
Yeah.
I did enjoy the video, even though I've only discovered it recently, like yourself.
Yeah. Shannon Carlton, who, hi Shannon. Shannon was on the show in 2020 talking about We Believe. She said, great song, great video. This video has been out here in Australia for like 5 weeks now, and it is played on all the music channels like 6 times a day. We love it.
That surprises me as well, because the video itself, like the song is more of a backing track than it is at the forefront of the video, because it's mostly people talking over the whole thing. So it's an interesting one to get so much play on TV. Like you can imagine people going and watching it on YouTube because you want to see
funny,
what they're saying. But then if you was to listen to that on TV and on a music channel, you'd be thinking, I just want to hear the song. Like, I don't want to hear what everyone's saying over it. So yeah, that's really surprised me. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just part of, they did a lot more promotion for this album in Australia.
Yeah, and clearly it's gone down well. So they obviously know the markets well.
Yeah. 2 more comments we're going to read. Says the noob for PK said, although they went downhill on their punk roots in Good Morning Revival, I still love them. Cardiology is pretty good, but nothing like Young and Hopeless. Let's just face it. Every single band is going to have that one album that was the best, but they cannot recreate their best album again. They'll try, but fail. And those who are willing to put up with their flaws will look past them and continue loving them. Those are the real fans.
Definitely. 100% agree with that statement.
I semi-agree. I don't totally agree with the every band is going to have their one best album. Because I feel like best is so subjective.
Have a couple of good solid ones. Like, as an example, I'll say Linkin Park with Hybrid Theory, Meteora. To me, you could class that as one whole era. So, maybe disagree with that part, but I like the part of saying, like, even if you feel like they've already done their best, you still stick along and enjoy whatever they're putting out. So
Sure. And the last YouTube comment we'll read is from Crisp Feedon Lover. LMFAO, I love it. If you knew them, you could tell it was them with all the ink.
Definitely.
Yeah. We're gonna read just a few comments from songmeetings.com. There wasn't a whole bunch, but X-Troll says, Good Charlotte has always been a band that I have liked in part for their good/meaningful lyrical content. Songs like this one and Like It's Her Birthday show them going in a lyrical direction that I don't like one bit. Shallow songs like this are pointless to me and have kept me from enjoying an album from one of my favorite bands.
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely an album that's kind of polarized fans. And like I said before, I don't feel like it is lyrically their strongest one. I know since it's been released, they have admitted that they can't stand Like It's a Birthday. They won't play it anymore. But the thing is, it's a snapshot in time, and at that time, they thought it was the right thing. They enjoyed it, they've gone with it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you just have to accept that, maybe this isn't quite what I want, but it could be something that really means a lot to someone else, or they think it's really fun. So
definitely. Just a couple more comments to read. Lexus says, I love this band. I love this song. Why can't a band have some fun with the music they write? I think this song has meaning anyway that every GC fan can relate to. We all like to listen to the band and think they are singing to us personally, which is really what this song is about.
I like that.
Yeah. Thomas HC says, sounds a bit too much like Lost in Stereo by All Time Low. And then Autophobe says, songs totally about Christina Aguilera.
Okay.
I don't know. In that case, Riot Girl is a pretty good comparison because they name check her in Riot Girl.
Name checks her and Britney,
yeah. Well, Amber, as we wrap up, how has Sex on the Radio held up for you over time?
So it is one that I still enjoy to this day. So I've got a best of GC playlist that I've made up on Spotify.
Oh, cool.
Which is most of the songs, to be fair. But Cardiology is an album I don't go back to as often. But Sex on the Radio is one of the songs that has made it into that best of. It is one of my highlights off that album. And I've listened to the album a couple of times this week, knowing that I was going to be talking about it again because it's been a while. And it was still so fun. And when it gets to Sex on the Radio, you can turn it up loud, you can sing along, kind of just enjoy yourself. So it's definitely still held up for me.
Totally. I think for me, like, I have always appreciated like how catchy this is. I definitely over time have had a lot of thoughts of like, okay, yeah, like it is kind of missing some of that like raw emotional side. And you know, the first album was very optimistic, but it also had like a more emotional side that I feel like this song in some ways kind of lacks. But it is a very, it's a fun song. It's a catchy song.
Yeah, I think maybe because even from that first album, like you say, it's kind of got that fun vibe, but there is a seriousness to it as well. I think maybe because they've always been in some ways quite serious because of what they've been through in life and things like that, they maybe thought that actually, no, we're just going to do something fun for a change. And I think this album definitely captured that side of it. Totally. It's good for them.
Well, Amber, what has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed?
So I've spent pretty much half my life now being obsessed with Good Charlotte, and they still bring me as much joy now as they did when I was 14 or 15. So when I listen to them, I feel like I haven't aged at all because it takes me back to when I first really got into them. And I love that. And there's not many bands that will take me back like that.
Sure.
And Sum 41 are the two that really stand out and take me back to being 14 or 15. And like, growing up's not always fun. You've got responsibilities. Life gets in the way. So it's nice if you're having a rough day or rough week. I know that I can put Good Charlotte on, and it'll take me back to feeling young and carefree. So I love that.
I love that. Amber, do you have any last words about Sex on the Radio, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
Just that I hope that we get some more new music soon from them. So I know they dropped last December, which was amazing, but that's been like 2 years now.
A little over a year.
Yeah, a little over a year once it was December 2020. So, and it was nice to have something new after a couple of years because it had been 2 years after Generation X.
Yeah.
And I'm sure loads of other Good Charlotte fans would agree that one song's just not enough.
No, it's not.
And what I really want the answer to is I want part 2 of the Christmas EP.
Oh my God, same. Because it was not just a GC Christmas, it was a GC Christmas Part 1.
So that's the burning question I want to know. And my GC friend who I connected with at work, that's always the thing. Every Christmas we're like, where's Part 2?
Yeah,
where is it?
Seriously. Well, Amber, as we wrap up, so I have a Generation GC and Friends Spotify playlist. So I add the song that we talk about on the episode. So I will add Sex on the Radio. And then I'm like to get a recommendation from my guest. So what's a song, anything that's not Good Charlotte? What's a song that you're enjoying lately?
Okay, so I am going to pick something from another one of my favourite bands, who is Enter Shikari. And the song I'm going to pick is, it came out in 2020. It still gets a lot of love from me. It's called Satellites, and it's a really wholesome song about the LGBTQ community.
Oh, wow.
So it's a bit of a shout out to them, and it's kind of sad in a way, but it's also really uplifting. So
I haven't.
It's just a wonderful song, so I'd definitely check it out. But it's something totally different to Good Charlotte.
What was the name of their album that came out in 2017?
The 2017 album was The Spark.
Yes, The Spark. I loved that album. A friend put me onto it, and I saw them in 2018. But I haven't heard, and I don't think I've heard that song Satellite yet. But I'm excited because they were so good. They were really, really great live. I mean, I was like, wow, this is insane.
Yeah, they are incredible. They're my most seen live band.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm going to give Satellites a shout out, and hopefully some of the other GC fans will enjoy it.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm sure that sounds like something that, I mean, specifically anyone LGBT, which I know we have a lot of listeners as well as past guests of the show that identify that way. You know, I'm sure anyone in there can really appreciate that. But I'm sure even if you're not in that spectrum, I'm sure people can just really appreciate what it has to say.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's
for sure. For sure. Well, Amber, I also like to ask my guests for a charity that they really believe in so we can encourage listeners to donate. What's a charity or organization that you'd like people listening to this to support?
I will give a mention to the Alzheimer's Society. So I lost my nana a few years ago after she suffered with Alzheimer's dementia. And it's such a horrible disease, and this charity helps fund research to find a cure and to support people living with dementia. So check out the Alzheimer's Society. So that's the UK one, but I imagine there's probably a US equivalent.
I believe there is, and I had actually right around when Good Morning Revival came out, I lost one of my grandmothers to Alzheimer's as well. So I am so sorry for your loss, and I it is such a devastating thing, and I so love that you brought that up, because just research and prevention and treatment for that would be so huge.
Yeah, it really would. So that's my shout out.
Yeah. Well, Amber, as we're gonna get going, but where can people keep up with you? Do you have social media that you want to share?
Yeah, so I mostly talk about music and stuff on Twitter. So if anyone wants to follow me, my handle for that is @ambo1992.
Perfect. Amber, thank you again for coming on the show. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Last time we talked about Misery from Good Morning Revival. Our next episode is a bonus episode talking about something that's not a Good Charlotte studio album track. My name is Molly Hudelson, once again, and as always, I've been your host, as well as the producer, creator, and editor of this show. Please make sure to follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod, POD, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, MHUDELSON, on Twitter and Instagram. Please make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please make sure to rate. It makes a big difference. And if you want to leave a review as well, that'd be awesome. But the biggest thing, as I always say, is spread the word. Word of mouth is so huge and making the Generation GC fam bigger and better. Thank you for tuning in.